this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the sound bites. Ben Kinsley is here. Ben, welcome. Co-host and co-producer. And our two special guests tonight are Nancy Zorn and Wendy Ray, who are co-presidents of the Vermont Jumpstart Coalition. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Pat.
Hello. And for sheer transparency, Nancy Zorn is the mother of our videographer here. Is that your official title, Zach? Videographer, sorry. And we want to send a special happy birthday to Arthur Zorn, because he's got his birthday today, and happy birthday, Arthur. It's February 18th, so there you go. Now we'll get serious. That's cool. It's a family thing. It's Vermont, you understand. So we always ask folks, now that I've told most of your background, tell us a little bit about yourself. And
well, I am retired now, but I worked for 15 years for the Green Mountain United Way as their executive director. And that's when I first became, involved in the financial well-being of people. We work mainly on the adult side, realizing that so many people who fall into financial issues they didn't have the information. They just didn't have that educational background to know what it was. So that's how I first became involved in both Jumpstart. I was, on their board when I was working. And then after I retired, I continued because I thought it was such an important issue.
Right. Good for you. Wendy?
Well, I've been in banking for 24, almost 25 years. I don't feel like I'm old enough to say I've been doing anything for 25 years. But I've been a huge advocate of financial literacy, mostly because I see the effects every day of the lack of knowledge.
Right.
So it's really been a passion of mine. I've been involved with Jumpstart for well over 10 years, on the board for most of that. So just going around and doing what I can to promote and get that knowledge out there.
That's great. Good for you.
Yeah. Cool.
That's good.
So we mentioned it, but tell us a little bit about what the Jumpstart Coalition is. I don't know which one of you wants to field that.
Well, I'll tell you, our mission is to improve the financial literacy skills of Vermont youth. So our focus is really on children 0 to kind of college. We don't do a lot on the college age, and we do a little bit on the preschool age. So primarily it's the K through 12 age that we do most of our work, with. We are an all-volunteer group, so we don't have any paid staff, we don't have any offices, we don't have any equipment, so all of our fundraising goes directly into services. And we are a 501c3 too. Our relationship with national, there's a national Jumpstart Coalition, again made up of coalitions of people like our coalition, people in banking, people in business, people in other nonprofits that are related. So that, and there again, they have very, very few staff. They have 2 field directors. So it's a very grassroots. There are about 50 or so.
You have a very strong board of directors. They all have strong finance. I know Margaret Ferguson really well, and she's been teaching financing at the
Capstone.
Capstone. Oh, I don't know why I forgot that name. It's been there a couple of years. Capstone. Margaret is just, she's amazing. So.
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's pretty impressive, the board, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's some banks are involved, some credit unions are involved, and some people from other finances.
Right.
And like myself, we have a couple retired people that have been on the board and are staying on it. So it is a very impressive board, I think.
Yeah, I was looking and I went, oh, wow. It's especially for all volunteer, and sometimes board members ask staff to do stuff for them, and there's no one here, so good for the staff.
Exactly.
That's true. They can't look down the table.
You get your coffee. No, you got to get it yourself. So why do you believe financial education is so important? I mean, this is a huge issue that we've talked about for years in Vermont.
Well, it's true. It's true. And when you look at the adult population and the issues that people have, particularly I would say when you with credit becomes the the more immediate one. for people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kids, you know, it's ironic. My daughter just turned 18, and she got all sorts of birthday cards and wishes in the mail, and she got her first credit card offer.
Oh, did she really?
So it was, thankfully, you know, she's my daughter, so
Yep.
she's grown up fairly exposed to the information. But yeah, they're really targeted and in all the wrong ways, and they're not given the information
Yeah.
on how to use those
Right.
those tools correctly and effectively. And then eventually, you know, they're getting jobs, they're out of college, they're in the workforce, and they've created habits now that become very difficult to
Right.
turn around.
Well, I had my grandchildren when they were living with me. Each one of them had one of these, and they had the hole at the top for the, and they would save, and they learned. I hope they're still doing it. They learned really early
It's
on,
important.
just to, you know, a nickel a day kind of adds up, and there you go.
You
Yeah.
have to start that early. I had somebody recently in my life that was describing habits as carving a groove. If you
Yeah.
think about carving that groove, and the longer you do it, the deeper that groove gets. And then one day you try to jump out of that groove and do something different. It's really quite difficult to do that.
Yeah.
So that's really the best way to describe starting early with a piggy bank. Really is starting to carve
Yeah.
that groove.
And we made a big deal out of going to open up a bank account. It was like
Yeah.
graduation. It was a big
Yeah.
deal.
Exactly.
We all went and had lunch, and big deal. And it was, I hope it stuck, but.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to, like, particularly the age demographics that you're targeting, because, you know, so many kids get, you know, get out of high school, go to college, you know, and their whole lives they've either had an allowance or they've had, you know, parents they need to justify purchases to,
Right.
and suddenly they're out on their own, and, you know, have
With
to
a
buy.
big debt to pay off.
Right, they have to pay for, in
Yes.
some cases, housing, but food and, you know, all these other things that they've never had to deal with before.
One of the things that we work with this early group is also, actually we're working more with the parents than the kids, is teaching their children, and I saw this with the adult population, the difference between a need and a want. You know, with the adult population, it would be, you know, I need a snowmobile. Well, maybe you need to pay your rent, you know.
Yeah.
So that the difference of that, and with little kids, it's starting out learning that nutritional foods are a need. You know, candies are a want. And then that mixture with what's a need and a want. You know, you might want crayons, which we also have for them. You might want crayons, but maybe you need food. So that, but maybe that bends because you want children also to have eye-hand coordination. Then that want becomes a need to teach eye-hand coordination.
Right.
And how do you save for those things? And how do you teach children to kind of blend those wants and those needs and those changing wants as they, you know, get older?
Right. Because it's not always cut and dry, right?
It's not
Right.
cut and dry.
You
Yeah.
know, like chocolate to me is a definite need. So I couldn't be talked out of that, Nancy. Sorry.
Exactly.
Back
Well,
home,
I think
listen
another good example of that, right, is you know, having a car could be a good example of that, right? You know, if you live in a city and you work 3 blocks away, a car might be a want.
Yeah, right.
But if you live, you know, not in a city, like most of Vermonters, and you have to drive for work, you're not on a bus route, then a car is a
Right.
need and not a want. And it's kind of one of those things where, like, the same thing could be either
It's
one,
individual.
just
right?
depending on the situation.
So
Yeah.
many things about really what we're talking about and the habits and the patterns that we're trying to change derive from our society, from our culture. And when
Yeah.
you look at our culture as a whole, we really are very
Right.
here and now.
Yeah, right. And
We're very here and now
Instant
based. What we-
gratification, that's
Exactly.
the phrase.
And technology and financial tools have
Just
made
borrowed,
it
right?
possible
Yeah.
for us to want something and have it immediately.
Amazon.
Amazon, right?
Exactly. And they
Some-
deliver the next day.
Well,
And
in some
credit cards.
cases,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
3 hours.
Yeah, right.
Like
Right.
there's some, actually there's, I can't remember if it's LA or New York, it's one of the two. They're experimenting with 1-hour deliveries.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. But that really speaks to our culture.
Right.
So how do we balance that cultural blend of the here and now
Right.
versus needs
I want to know
and
how you
wants.
teach kids that ATM machines are not a constant source of money. My daughter just would say, when, you know, this big, well, just go to the machine, Mom. And I'm like, honey, if I have to put money in there for to take it out, but she never got that concept.
That's
Is it-
hard, and
Yeah.
you know, kids see their parent slip that little
and the money
piece of
comes out.
plastic
Yeah.
across,
Right.
but they never see their parents pay for it. So they, in a child's mind,
That's- Yeah.
they're great observers, but not great
Yeah.
interpreters
I
of
had
what's
took me
going
a
on.
long time
Yeah.
to explain that one.
That's a good way to put it, actually. That
Yeah.
they're good observers, but not great interpreters.
That is a great way.
I
Yeah.
have to write that down. That's
Absolutely.
good.
So that it is confusing, you know, for kids. So, you know, at this early age, we're working a lot with the parents, teaching the parents. We do a lot of dabble days, and we teach the parents how to play with the kids in an educational way, like teaching numbers.
What did you say, Dabble Days? What's that?
It's one of the programs that we collaborate with other groups. It's different in different counties.
Oh.
So who actually runs it? Building Brighter Futures
Oh.
is some of the people that run it.
Yeah.
But it's a day that is set aside, usually a Saturday, sometimes a Sunday, and there are all kinds of different groups that are set up.
Dabbling.
Dabbling, yeah.
Ah.
Some in, some of them are teaching motor skills, some of them are teaching healthy eating habits.
Nice.
Some of them are teaching historical types
Much
of
fun.
things. So the kids come in and they go around to these different spots,
Right.
and they learn different skills. What we do for that is we have a bingo game, so that we hold up the
Oh, the
number.
number.
Now some of they're so cute. Some of the kids know numbers, some don't. But some of the other kids will say, well, this is a 5. Let's look at your bingo card and see where the 5 is. We do piggy banks. So if they win, they get a piggy bank.
Oh, nice.
And the piggy banks are to help them to save for something
Right,
after
right.
high school. And we also give them a quarter so they can hear it going
Nice.
in, so they can start their savings.
So we have a couple of hundred or 50 or?
Some of them are huge. They
Oh,
vary
really?
greatly. Some of them are done by town. We have 50 piggy banks at them, and then we also have these coloring books
Nice.
that we also
Oh,
do, and
I
they
can
have
relate to that.
educational types of things in them on money. So we probably see 80 to 90
Oh,
kids.
nice day.
Yeah, that's pretty
That's
cool.
fun.
So, what type of problems do we have here in Vermont around financial literacy? This is a topic I've heard a few times
Yeah.
kicked around in Montpelier, and it's one that I haven't seen directly addressed, but I know it's one that's come up
Yeah,
several
Beth
times.
Pierce has taken that on big
She
time,
has,
the
yeah.
treasurer.
Absolutely.
Every
She has
time I'm
highlighted
with
it.
her in a group, she's always talking about that, which is great.
Beth Pierce has been a
Isn't she?
huge
Yeah.
advocate for financial
Yeah.
literacy. We could not honestly have a better person in a better position
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
to help really
of credibility.
spearhead. Absolutely. And I do attribute a lot of the momentum that we're seeing and a lot of the shift that we're seeing, I do attribute
That's
directly
great.
to Beth. She has really focused a lot of energy. The problems are really, where does Vermont stand in the whole big picture? Because we are certainly not unique in what we're experiencing. Like I said, the focus is changing, but really big picture, there's only 4 states in the United States that actually mandate personal financial education as,
Now, I
as a
thought
graduation
are we
requirement.
not one of them? I
We are
thought
not one of them.
there was a bill
There
a
was
few years ago that Beth promoted,
correct.
and it didn't go through?
No, we have not
Wonderful.
changed our mandate for financial literacy being a graduation requirement.
Because adult ed, I know when I worked in the Department of Ed, one of the things they had to teach adults is a checkbook.
I've actually done several workshops
Really?
with adult basic ed. Absolutely.
It's a little scary.
So there is, there was a study that was done. There's actually been a couple of studies, but in 2015, the Financial Literacy Commission was formed. Beth Pierce was actually one of the members on that. And in 2017 and 18, they published 2 reports based on all the research and the interviews and everything that they gathered over that time frame. And that was really our first opportunity to get a quantitative picture of where is
we are.
Vermont in this scheme. There's tons of national studies and actually John Pelletier through Champlain College did a national study,
Right.
and unfortunately did a credit report, not a credit report, sorry, a report card
yeah.
of sorts on all the states, and unfortunately Vermont gets a D in offering financial literacy to our students. So we have a lot of work to do, but we've got great momentum. Where are we technically? We have 14 schools, 14 high schools out of 65 that are currently offering
Good.
financial literacy and making it a graduation requirement.
Good for them.
So
Kudos.
organically, they have acknowledged that this is an area that we put right up there with math,
Right.
with science,
sure.
and it should be.
Right, it should
Because
be.
without this information, they can go out and have the best careers and still be financially unstable.
Yeah.
And I've saw that some people make really good salaries, but they sink themselves, and but other people who make very little money do very
Yeah,
well
right.
with their money because they know how to save, they know how to manage their money, they know how to form a budget and hold to that budget.
Yeah.
I will say one of the great things though that the state has done is because of the report card that came out, the state has adopted the Department of Education, Agency of Education,
Agency, right.
has adopted the National Jump Tart standards to be the standards to be taught in Vermont.
Great.
Wow.
Right.
Very
And
cool.
That's very
And-
impressive.
It's very impressive, and those standards were put together with a very large collaborative that looked at what age each student is at and what is their
Right.
ability to gain this information, and how does one piece of information build on another.
You guys
piece of
invited
information.
in to talk to classes and stuff, or
We-
that's not part of it because
We
you're not
really
many of them?
try to.
Yeah.
We try very hard to get into the classes. It is difficult. There's a lot of stuff packed into a curriculum for a
right.
teacher.
Yeah.
So some teachers are much more creative than others in being able to find ways to introduce financial literacy. And as Nancy said, part of the standards now is there needs to be a component in there, but it's still not a graduation requirement per se. It's that there needs to be elements introduced. So it could be in a business class, it could be in a social studies class, an economics class. So they could get tidbits.
I think one of the important things, though, that how Jumpstart really fits into this, not only is there these national standards that were very carefully developed
Right.
and adopted to be used in the state by the Agency of Education, is that Jumpstart offers each year a conference for teachers. And we
Oh.
try to keep that cost extremely low. And so this past conference, Dan French,
Oh, right.
the
Secretary.
Secretary of Education, was one of our speakers. Also, Jeb Spalding
Ah,
was one of our speakers
Yeah.
as the Vermont College. I
yeah.
forget
And he's-
the
what
exact
is-
He's
what
the
is
treasurer.
treasurer? He's
the council,
Chancellor.
Chancellor.
Chancellor,
of College came to talk about. First of all, Jeb talked about the importance of kids saving for college.
Right.
He also talked about Vermont colleges and the price of Vermont colleges, and people could live at home and go to them.
Yeah.
So that it's important for kids to have something beyond high school.
Right.
I always use the example of with my grandparents. He graduated from 8th grade and developed a business,
Right, and off you go.
And he did very well in life. In my parents' time, if you graduated from high school, that's what you needed, and
Right.
became engineers, and did very well. The next generation was college and did very well. Well, now people even need more than that
Yeah.
for a lot of
Right.
jobs.
We're
the
pushing very
masters.
hard in campaign for Vermont for technical education.
And
Because
the-
to me, there's some kids just don't belong in college.
No, and
They
then
don't do well.
And then there's that other realm. I think I really see that too. Is there's this
Right.
other realm, and we still need electricians. We still
For
need
sure.
plumbers.
Right,
We
there's a
still
huge
need
Good money,
those
demand.
types.
2 years, less debt. I mean, it just, the benefits go
Exactly.
on and on. And some
69
kids are hands-on, not the teacher student.
Exactly.
That'd be me, the hands-on.
69% of our graduates graduate with over $29,000 worth of student loan debt.
Yeah, which is
So,
crazy.
and that is enough to scare a lot of kids from
For
going
sure.
to school to begin with.
Yeah, right.
So it is very real.
Because they'd like a life when they get out and start working, and
Yeah.
Exactly,
they're paying this ridiculous.
many of them really have no idea what that means.
No, that's
They-
true.
they just-
And
Good
thus
point.
the need for that education before they're making that decision of
Right.
what's $29,000.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's later. That's
Yeah,
later.
I'll pay it
lot
later.
and a lot of their parents don't know.
Right.
So that their parents don't know, the type of debt and everything.
Parents don't know that their kids have taken on this debt?
Oh, they know that the parents, but they don't understand that what this debt is going to mean after
Oh,
school.
I see,
Right.
right.
So if with X dollars of
Charge
debt,
cards are for, right? Is it- Spread them out.
But,
Right.
But then kids, they might want to have an apartment. They might need a car.
Right.
Want to get married, maybe?
And they most always would want a cell phone. Again, wants and needs here.
Yep.
And they also might want to eat. So
Oh, Nancy.
they don't have all of,
Yeah.
but they don't understand all of those costs.
right.
Then how
Right.
those costs all
And then
go
adding
in.
on a $400 a month student loan payment.
Right,
for that.
exactly.
True.
That'd kill you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and
True.
we still have half of our high school students are not completing the FAFSA. So that's leaving, that
Right.
left $5.5 million in federal aid, just left it on the table.
Oh, my word.
Left
Yeah.
it on the table.
Really?
So
And
there's,
why aren't we yelling or saying, hey?
and that is a big push. That is supposed
For
to be a
sure.
big push right now. Because that was one of the things that came out of the Financial Literacy Commission report.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that, because
Yeah.
that was, I think, 2015, they put that
They
commission
put it together. Yep.
I know they just put out, every year they put out recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
I read this year's, and I was just, maybe you could go through some of the, and who's on the committee first? I'm sure Beth is, for sure.
Oh, goodness, there is a ton of people, boy.
But-
You caught me on that
Oh,
one.
no, I'm sorry.
Well, I know that John Pelletier from Champlain College is
Right.
on there. Beth,
Your boss.
and yes, Tom Levitt is the Vermont Bankers Association representative. I was just looking at that list today, too.
But mostly banking people,
There's
financial people?
no, not even. They are mostly from, well, there's Department or Agency of
Oh.
Education is on there. The Association of Principals, I think,
Oh,
has a
right. Oh,
representative on
okay.
there. There's probably,
School
I
Boards
feel like,
Association?
yep, I
Yeah.
think they're on there.
Interesting.
There was, there's a couple of different business groups that have
Good, because they need it too,
representation.
kids arriving with knowledge.
Exactly. So it was a very broad committee of
Good,
people
good.
with a vast array. Courtney Paquette was on the
Courtney, yeah,
commission.
yeah.
She's a teacher
Teacher.
up in Williston. I believe it's Williston
Yeah,
High
the
School.
Paquette family
She
comes
is
from up
one
there.
of those. She's a true advocate of financial literacy. She's won our Jumpstart Financial Literacy Champion Award.
Oh, great.
She's also attended the National does have
The
a
national
conference.
conference.
Oh, nice. She's
Yeah,
really into
she's
it,
a
huh?
huge advocate. So
Yeah.
it was wonderful to see her on there. But it's a very broad spectrum of people represented on that committee,
Great.
which was nice.
Yeah, so every year they have their recommendations, and do you know some of them this year that they made in the 2018, I guess, well, not 19, 18.
We were just well, unfortunately, 2018 was their last, the
Oh, it's going away?
yes.
Have we fixed financial literacy?
well, I don't,
Well, they-
I don't
What's
think
that
so.
about? I don't think so either.
Their role was really to do this investigation,
Right.
Yeah.
make
To
some
identify.
recommendations, and then have other groups pick up
Oh,
and
okay, so
work
it's
forward
gonna
on those.
continue.
The
Right.
work will constantly
Oh, okay.
continue. It's
'Cause
just
I don't
not
think
by
we're there
that.
yet, just saying.
Not by that commission. No, we're not even close.
No, I don't
Yeah.
think so.
But the various areas were identified, and that commission took all the way from school age all the way through adults as
Yep.
well. So some of their recommendations for this year were to have a focus on the FAFSA completion.
Good, yeah, that,
To get us
it's almost
up.
a no-brainer.
It's silly.
You don't leave that
It's
amount of money
silly,
on
but
the table.
that speaks very dramatically to the lack of education. So how do we get this information to the parents? Because that's really who's
right,
filling this
right,
out.
right.
And how do you get to parents if the only informational seminars that you're going to have are at 7 o'clock at night. That might not be feasible for everybody.
Right.
So that was one of their big recommendations. Another one is to get 70% of Vermonters, 70% by the year 2025, to have 70% that have completed an industry recognized credential or a degree.
So one of the
That's their
interesting
goal.
things, I was reading this this piece of the report, and that's a pretty hefty goal in the next 7 years
Yes.
to get there, considering that currently we're at 22%.
Yes.
So to get from 22 to 70
To
is a pretty heavy
70
lift.
is huge. And I think we're starting to see that, though, because there really is a focus right now on getting those
One of the things,
the technical industry involved and really getting the hands-on experience and recognizing that not everybody learns the same way. You have seen a lot of efforts in Agency of Education as far as personal learning plans,
Right.
and recognizing where is everybody's strengths and how can we promote that and how can we get that promoted past high school.
Right.
one of the things that that came out of this study was that the Agency of Education, along with John Pelletier, are building these groups. So they're hiring specific people. I think there's going to be 4 people that are hired to look at each one of these grade levels and disciplines and come up with we're calling it a crosswalk. So how can this be done? How can these standards, these national standards, be done? And how does that fit into math? And how does that fit into social studies? And how does that fit into all of these?
Because we know math is just, besides college, tech ed, we don't do a good job in bringing these kids in high school, sorry y'all, up to where they should be. When they go to tech ed, it takes months for them to get these kids up to speed. And if they were familiar with numbers, and that would help them.
Yes.
Well, this should, if by teaching this in an organized manner, because education builds on itself, it builds up. That should really help kids. So when they do graduate from high school, they have some of these really basic things.
Right.
And I see it as a retired person on kind of the long end of people that think that they're going to have Social Security and they're going to live on Social Security alone without anything else.
Right.
And that it's just not realistic for someone to have any kind of quality of life in their elder years if they're planning on only living on, maybe $1,500 worth of Social Security.
Yeah.
So, so some of these are long-term. I think that's hard for people to kind of get a grasp around.
Right.
But if they start talking about that in high school and this money that's being taken out of your pay, and a lot of people don't understand that if you're going to make $40,000, that why can't you spend $40,000? We don't realize that there are taxes taken out and Social Security is being taken out and your health benefit, so that whittles that down pretty fast on how much your expendable income is for it, and also that retirement is savings.
Well, speaking of education, why don't you talk to us about April?
April is
timing.
Financial Literacy Month.
Right.
And we're having the governor do a proclamation, as he has done different governors for many, many years for that. And Jumpstart will be in the card room at the State House, which people can come and stop by, and we will have a map of Vermont up showing the schools that do have financial literacy as a credit.
Right.
And also our plan is through a national connection is have that you can come and you can see if where your school is working. If your school is not working on having these financial education courses, that it will give you a list of, as an individual, what you can do, like talk to your school board, and a whole list of types of things that you can do. And they're doing this on the national level and making this information available to us so that as individuals, people can kind of step up to the plate. And
Are you
say,
doing anything, luncheons or any get-togethers besides the 11th? Or
what
are you doing for the month? I mean, sending stuff out, information?
Really, we have our big bang is on the 11th. That we participate with the treasurer's office. And then we don't per se have anything else going on in
okay.
April, but we
That is-
are well into our planning
Great.
for our annual conference
Right,
that
great.
that will be happening.
And something else that's happening on that day is that we also have a really strong connection with the treasurer's office.
For sure.
And they do their awards for their reading
Oh.
as an investment that day, and we'll
Oh,
be
nice.
at that. That's when we do the proclamation, and we also recognize an individual that has done outstanding leadership
Great.
in promoting financial literacy to their students.
Excellent.
It's usually a
Yeah,
teacher.
you mentioned the card room, and I don't know if folks know, I don't know why they ever call it the card room, but as you go into the SADAS, it's on the second floor. It's right before the ramp to go into the cafeteria. I guess in the old days, they must have sat around and played cards, I guess. That's why they did it. I
Very
can't figure-
possible.
That's the name of it. I don't know why, but it's the card room. You
There's
can
a
find them there.
Story behind everything in
I
that
know.
building.
It's
Really
yeah,
is.
it's probably not
Every
one we
nook
want to
and
share
cranny.
either.
Not to backtrack a little bit, but we talked a little bit about what the commission, the goals in the commission's report were. What are the goals of Jumpstart? And this is kind of a two-part question. So what are the goals of Jumpstart, and what are you doing to work towards those goals?
So really, ultimately, the goals of Jumpstart are to promote the financial literacy and the financial education for our Vermont youth. And we do that in a whole handful of different ways, really getting in touch with the educators. They're the ones that have that direct connection with our youth. Having our annual conference to help, and we bring in speakers that will help them, give them tools to bring that information back into their classrooms.
There's a whole variety of programs. Some of them are very well packaged that you can bring into your classroom. And so we have workshops on those variety of different package kind of plans. Some are quite costly, others are not. Some have pieces of different things, so we bring those in, and so that the teachers could go around to workshops. Even how one of the things that teachers do say is they want to know what the resources are, and we do have resources on our website too. And they want to have times to connect with each other and talk to each other about what's happening at different schools and how they were able to get past some of these hurdles. Some of the hurdles being, I'd like to teach a financial literacy course on something, but my principal doesn't think that's a very good idea or whatever.
So is that like your primary target audience are teachers?
Yes, because we work in a pyramid. Because
Yeah.
again, we don't have any staff. We're all volunteers, so we work in kind of a pyramid. If we can train 50 teachers, and each one of those teachers throughout a year
Train the
reaches-
trainers, sort of.
Train the
Yeah,
trainers.
Exactly.
can reach
Exactly.
50 kids or 60 kids, then that spreads out. Some of the other things, though, that we also do is we try to recognize teachers. Each year we give an award, and to help teachers feel they're valued and help teachers to see that what they're doing does make a difference, and that encourages other teachers to do more with that. We also send a teacher to the national conference
Oh,
each
that's
year.
nice. That's good. How do you select that teacher? Though?
Very often we get recommendations and
Oh,
then
okay.
select them
just
from that.
Somebody who's really into it and very.
Somebody who's
supportive of
really
it.
into it, or sometimes we have become aware that someone would like to go to the national conference but doesn't have the funds to go to it. And so that's, I think, an important thing, because then when that teacher comes back to that school,
Right, they're gonna
they are far more
spread the word.
educated.
Exactly.
They're far more excited about it. And then they're talking, that Connie Burkett, that's where one of the reasons why she got
Courtney, yep.
very interested in it, is she went to the national conference and she met other teachers
Right.
throughout the country
Right, that's
that
great.
were very interested in it, and she began to build up these relationships that she could
I'm
become.
going to say, Beth, and I know you have a very good website. It's www.vtjumpstart.org. Beth has a big section on her website about financial literacy, and there's a lot of good stuff on there too. So she goes out in the field as you do and spreads the word.
Absolutely. Well, and I think we've noticed really with Vermont in general, we're very grassroots. Everything
Right.
takes place very grassroots,
Yep.
and we've seen 14 high schools that have made the commitment themselves to make financial literacy a graduation requirement. Back in 2014, there was only 7 schools.
Wow.
So that's
Excellent.
4 years we doubled
Yeah.
the number of schools. So if we continue on this path that we're on, really giving this topic the level of attention that it really needs, then imagine if we could double in another 4 years. That'd be 28 schools.
Right.
And then in another 4 years, we could almost be at full capacity just on a grassroots basis.
great.
And hopefully by then, you know, we've gotten some larger national movement towards this. But I think Vermont gets it. I think that we're finally getting it and seeing that, you know, our workforce is hurting because of the lack of this information. And it's really just basic information. But if nobody ever tells you,
Yep.
how are you supposed to know?
Right.
Exactly.
You got to figure it out either for yourself or you got to figure it out the hard way.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
two
I
That's
ways
what
agree.
of
most
Yeah.
people do, and it's
Yeah.
very hard and it's very discouraging when you're starting at the bottom.
Right.
When you're starting underneath all of these constraints, it's very hard to see the hope, to see the how can I start my business? How can I expand my business when I can't seem to move forward?
Yeah.
So we're unfortunately feeling that reality in our workforce and in our employers, our business base, and now we're reacting. We've become
On
a
one of your
cultural.
things where you're talking about credit cards, you put in the word investment, that you teach people about investments.
Yes.
What was me, if I could do it over again in high school, I would take a course on the stock market.
Right.
I mean, I know, embarrassingly so, but I know very little about it, and I would love to play the stock market, but I'm afraid to do it because I don't understand it. And I mean, everything when you go to work, it's all about investments, 401ks, and when you say investment, what do you teach these kids about? Do you talk a little bit about investments and 401k and pensions?
In some classes, yeah. Sometimes some classes go, you know, into great depth.
Really?
Because some of those kids might
Sign me up for that.
might work at the stock market.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Actually, a game. It's a classroom curriculum game. It's called the stock market game.
Oh, cool.
So a lot of classes will actually play that game throughout the course
Yeah.
of their
That's exactly
of
what
their
I was
class.
thinking in high school, to have a game. You start out with $1,000 in the beginning and see at the end of 6 weeks or whatever the class
Exactly.
is. So
Like
you-
Monopoly?
Yeah, like Monopoly, physically, or you got to take on 2 jobs or something.
Yeah.
And that is very true. And now we're starting to get a base of educators that actually have the knowledge to be able to offer courses like that.
Yeah.
Because that was part of the problem, is we recognized that we didn't have educators. We didn't have trainers to train the trainers.
Right.
There was a huge gap in knowledge to be able to start that ball turning.
Right.
And now we're getting there.
Right.
We are getting there. Investment is one of the
That's great.
6 different
Right.
components of the
You said
curriculum for
retirement,
Jumpstart
which is and
standards.
people need to put in retirement at any age, the maximum you can. And I wish somebody had
And
told me
it-
that about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, a lot of younger people, if they have a match program at their
Yeah,
at the work
right.
site, they don't want to do it because they see, well, I'm going to have to give you, I'm
Right.
going to have to give up, you know,
Yeah.
$5 out of my,
Right,
$10
right.
out of my
Do it.
income. But what they don't see is that a business is matching that $10, so you're actually
20.
getting
Leaving money on the table.
$20
What a deal.
that you're doing it, and
Yeah.
and they don't see how this money builds over time.
Right.
You know that. And that becomes a real issue for people if they don't have that money. They don't start young. When you're putting in even a small amount of money,
Yeah.
you know, a small amount of money over 40 years will
Yeah.
really add up.
You know, it's amazing because I just did I just did the math on this the other day because I shop sometimes at City Market in Burlington, and they give you the option to round up and donate your change
Right.
to whatever cause is for that month. Usually the food bank is one of them, and then there's a couple others as well. And there's some apps out there now. I think Acorns is one of them, which does basically the same thing, but instead it invests your spare change.
Ah.
So one of the examples was, well, if you get, a quarter if you have a quarter change every time you buy a cup of coffee, and say you buy a cup of coffee,
Yeah,
5 days a week, how quickly does that add up?
for sure.
And I did a quick math on it,
Yeah.
and over 30 years, it was like $5,000.
Yeah.
That's just your investment, upfront
That you
investment,
would never
not
miss.
even your
Not even
Yeah.
your earnings.
your earnings. Yeah, and it's like, wow, if you did 25 cents a day for 30 years,
Exactly.
adds up to something.
Yep.
That goes to speak again about our culture of here and now.
Right.
We're very much
Right.
in
I
our
give you
in our
$5
face.
now, I want it now, right? Why is it-
Exactly. I need that $5
Right.
now, not thinking about what could that $5 look like
Right.
later, and how might I actually need that money later. So it's carving a different groove of how we look at that future
Yeah.
need and prevention versus reaction.
Right.
Right.
And some of this is also saving for emergencies. That's another thing that
Right.
sinks a lot of people. And it can be, a car. Your car breaks down and you've got a bill for $1,000. For a lot of people, trying to find $1,000 is a lot
Right, yep.
of money. Others might be in a higher income or in a lower income, and you have a medical emergency. You have cancer, and you're trying to come up with
Right.
many thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
So that the emergency savings is something that we haven't talked about.
And
that
it's
is
always when you,
Yes.
whenever I have a little saved, it's the car.
Yeah.
It's like a
It's the
guarantee.
car.
I've got money saved aside, the car goes.
Well,
It's just like,
I hit a pothole last weekend and bent one of my rims.
oh, wow.
really?
So there you go. That's
There
200
goes
bucks
that.
right there.
Exactly. $200.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
on
All
this
day
whole
long.
list of what you teach, you also have, and I didn't mean to skip over that, you have mortgages. What, that's a tricky one, like the balloon mortgage. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Buy a smaller house.
again, our focus is really from kindergarten through college, and the mortgage piece of it is, yes, we want you to understand how mortgages work,
Right.
and how to apply for one, but really it's what are you doing leading up to that mortgage? How are you establishing your habits
Right.
so that when you go to apply for a mortgage, you don't have a ton of debt
Right.
already looming
Bad
over
credit
you.
rating.
Bad credit,
Say bad credit.
exactly.
Yeah.
That you've established savings so you can have a down payment and actually make your mortgage more affordable. So all of these things lead
That's
up
great.
to getting a mortgage, which is important to understand how.
Does it sink in, do you think? I mean, this is, for depending on the age, it's a pretty heavy-duty stuff to be talking about when you're 15, 16, worried about the football game you're playing on Saturday.
Different kids are going to be different about it.
Right, yeah.
And that's why you have to, I think, get all that information out there, because at some point,
It'll click in.
it's something is going to say, well, now I might like to buy a house.
Yeah, right.
I might not want to rent because I know it's costing me a lot to rent, and
Right.
I could have some investments
Right.
and things. So I think, it's getting some of that information out, even though they're not going to use it immediately.
Right, as long as it's
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's the importance of establishing this information really very early, and
Right.
you're building on it, and you're building on it.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things was, and I think this was John Pelletier's, one of the surveys that they did through Champlain College, was 80% of parents put talking about finances and financial literacy with their kids, they put it in the same category as talking about sex.
Last.
Bottom of the
sometimes-
list. Bottom of the list.
Not going to do it.
Yeah.
Not going to do it. I don't know
Right.
what to say. What am
Right.
I supposed to? How do I even
They'll
start?
learn
Yeah.
in school.
So, that's your hope, but then they don't,
don't.
in many cases.
Right.
Well,
So it really does.
That's funny.
And
Yeah.
many years ago, this probably would have been categorized as like household economics, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And because this used to be a part of curriculum for many schools, and somewhere along the way that just dropped off. Dropped off. The
By the
map.
time it was home ec.
Home
I
ec.
was gonna
Exactly.
say,
That
that was in
Home ec.
4
And-
parts.
okay.
One was financial,
Yep.
cooking,
Sewing.
sewing, and
What was the other
oh,
one?
shop.
Oh,
I still
yes.
have I still have.
Oh, we didn't
I
do
have a
shop.
corner cabinet I
Yeah.
made. It's still there.
Well, you still
Ooh,
might
very
need
nice.
cooking, but sewing probably not. And
Oh, no,
shop.
they love it.
Shopping,
At
yeah.
the end of the years, we put on a really big wedding.
Ah,
And we cooked and sewed, and
Very
it was a big
nice.
That's a
deal.
great idea,
Isn't
actually,
that
because
cool?
it incorporates all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have-
Exactly.
You have to cook for
Put on
the.
That really would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to
that's
cook.
right.
You have to put a budget together. You
Yeah.
have to have, you know, this.
They made knickknacks for the tables.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that was-
Stuff for the
Everybody was
tables.
busy.
And, yeah.
You know,
great
Yeah,
idea.
absolutely.
I first became kind of interested in it in third grade. We had this little store that we built. You know, it was out of cardboard,
Oh, right.
and you had to do work, so you could clap the erasers back when they had chalkboards. You know,
Oh, yeah.
clap the erasers.
I remember
and you
that.
get
I'm right with
paid,
Nancy.
And you get paid with it, or you know, you could wipe off the tops of the desks, and you
Right.
got paid for that. You know, all little jobs that you did
Nice.
within the classroom, and you got. It was, you know, fake money. It wasn't
Yeah,
real
right,
money.
right.
And then once a week, you could go to the store. And we took turns playing the storekeeper, and you could buy like a pencil or an
Oh, nice.
eraser or you know something like that.
You work, you get money, you
That's
buy.
fabulous.
There
It was
you
a
go.
whole kind of sequence of
Super.
kind of
Yeah.
life, and you know it always was something that I remembered about working is that you work and you get paid, and then you can buy things that you,
Yeah.
You didn't
in
have
that
to ask
case,
Mom or
need.
Dad.
You know, you needed your pencil, and there were all things that you needed. I think at one special time that you could buy some candy at the shop, but that was like
I remember,
Valentine's Day or something.
I grew up working on my uncle's farm.
Oh, really?
Which was you know, at first it was just, you know, my own, you know, I would work and get paid.
Chores.
Go to, yeah, we'll go to and then like buy, you know, Nintendo something or other, you know. And then it was, after that it was then cars, like I was, you know, doing something with the car or whatever. You just kind of progress from there, but
Yep.
it teaches you early on,
Sure.
like how you,
Hard work.
how do you, yeah, you have to work hard. Working on a farm is hard
Yeah,
work.
right.
And then the other interesting thing that, like, once I got to a certain point, is understanding the economics of the farm itself and
Ah,
how
right.
the
That was
business
good that
operated.
you-
Yeah, that's good.
And that was fascinating because everyone knows how difficult the economics of farming
For sure.
are in, you know, the Northeast. So, but I think
Milk prices. kill
milk
you.
prices kill
Yeah.
you. So unless you're on a scale that you can absorb that, but
Exactly.
you know, it's an incredible kind of experience, and not everyone has that experience.
It's true. It's true. And you know, and when I was young, you know, girls babysat and boys mowed lawns, so everybody did. Everybody kind of had a job.
Yep.
And today that doesn't always happen
Right.
for one reason or another. Is when you're a younger person, you know, in your teens, you don't have jobs like that, so that you don't have the opportunity to earn your money and save it or spend it for what.
There's too many regulations. We used to just work. Nobody thought about it's important, but safety, and you just went to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody asked you. But anyway, so we have a few minutes left. I just saw a word here: golf tournament. What is that?
Well, you
That's
know,
a biggie.
it does take some money to run
Yeah.
to buy you know, our little books and stuff.
Yep.
So our whole budget is like a little bit over than $10,000. You know, with the conference and everything we do.
Wow.
So we don't need a lot of money, but we do need money to run these programs and to you know, buy some things that we give away. We like to keep, like I said, keep the cost of the conference low, so it's
Right.
more affordable for teachers to
Right.
come. Some schools pay for it, some don't. For it, and our big fundraiser is our golf tournament.
That's good. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Actually, for some organizations, I know one in particular, they make some serious bucks at that. I won't
There
give
are
away the
some-
organization, but whoa.
Yeah.
You know?
They've been going on for a long
Yeah,
time.
right. They're very, you've got to go. So it's
Yeah.
what you do here in Washington County.
Exactly.
But, so where do you have yours? When is it?
It moves around to different places, so we haven't set an exact date. We're looking at in a June time frame, and we're looking at a local course
Oh, good.
here for it. So that stay tuned for that, because
Yeah,
it
that's
is
great.
it is an important fundraiser
Yeah.
for us. The majority of our funds do come from financial institutions. But I think some of your viewers might realize the importance of this, and also want to, you know, support us
Some help.
through that.
Right. So they can do that probably on your website. Is there some kind
There
of
is
a
a-
how to
Yep.
donate? Yes, that's a good word. Especially if you're all volunteers. That's
It's huge because then I
Yeah.
mean, that's the, you know, sometimes you give to nonprofits and you never really know where
right. Exactly.
where that money is going. You know, is it going to overhead costs? Is it
Yep.
like what is this? You know, what is this going towards? And I think it, you know, and you know that this is a volunteer organization. and it's going straight to programming, I think that's people feel good about that.
Yeah, you can, it's almost 100% of ours goes to programming
think
because
so,
we
because
don't have other costs.
Right.
You know, we have a small amount to put on the golf course, the golf tournament, but it's a very small amount because we get everything kind of donated. We do have to pay for the course, but everything else is probably donated, so
Right.
you know that a very
We have
high
very
percentage-
generous people in Vermont.
We do.
There absolutely are.
If they're into the issue, the funds keep rolling. I'm very impressed with Vermont.
Yeah, the other thing really is just be an advocate. We're looking for advocates to go to your school board meetings, to go talk with your legislators. Let them know that this is an important
Do
topic.
you ask for money on town meeting day?
No, we don't.
We do not currently.
Because
We don't really have the staffing to do that, to fill out all the forms and stuff. We have been looking more at grants. That
you know, there are some nonprofits that get together that have 4 or 5 nonprofits on one sheet, and they could do the. You should think about
True.
that, ladies.
True.
Because
Yep.
that's, I think we'd ought to all give to that. You could come and talk to us about what Jumpstart does, and that's a good place. And I don't know, my town, we never say no. So come on over.
All right, we're writing that one down. Can I borrow your pen?
Go to Berlin, yeah.
And I'm proud of that.
Oh, you should be proud of that.
I'm not upset
Absolutely.
about it, but I this, you know, it's the usual ones every year, and we all know them, and we support them.
Yep.
and We give them money, not tons. It's not like, you know, but
Yeah.
$500. But my town gives $500, and
Yep.
there you go.
Yeah.
It adds up, you know.
Yeah, it does. It's really worth it because if you, I just collected for somebody that I'm involved in, and I went to, I went to town meeting. I went to the voting booth, stood outside with my little sign, and I got all my signatures. One day, a couple hours, knocked it off. We go to the farmers market in Montpelier to get Montpelier voters. You stand outside, done.
Done,
So
yeah.
it's only a couple hours, one person, and maybe you start small with a couple of towns. You don't need to knock them all off, but a couple of towns. Berlin and Montpelier, just to do that.
Pat can hook you
I
up.
can hook you up.
We take up, we
And
take up
you
with
only
volunteers.
do it
Can
once,
sign
and if
you
you
up.
don't change the amount of money, you don't have to redo the petitions. It's not every year. If you ask them for 500 this year, and you have all the, whatever they need, a couple of hundred in Montpelier, but then next year, if you keep it at 500, you don't have to do anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, one of the
Oh, I
things
didn't
that we
realize that.
appreciate being on your show is we're not a well-known organization.
No, this
so
is
to get the
great.
Yeah.
to get the word out.
Yep.
So when
Totally.
we ask for funds or we ask for volunteers,
Yeah.
people know more
Well,
about us.
I'm sure they know about financial literacy, particularly because, as you said, with Beth, she did a lot of advertisements and a lot of PR out there about how important it is. So you've got her backing for sure.
Yep.
I'm very impressed with Beth.
Well,
Yeah,
we've
very
had
much
a
so.
great relationship with the treasurer's office, which
Yeah.
we've greatly appreciated. Beth has been wonderful,
Yeah.
and her staff is wonderful.
Now, were you there when business when Jeb was in place?
Yep.
Yeah, you went back. Yeah,
Yep.
because she's only been here a couple of years.
More than a couple of years.
More than a couple. Of years. 10 goes fast, and it's 10, and I'll be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you could ask what.
Yeah,
you could wrap it up.
I'm curious, a couple things, just to kind of recap the type of programming that you do. So the conference is kind of like the big thing, and then you offer programming for teachers specifically, right? And
Right.
Is that in the conference or is that outside the conference?
It's, well, we offer information resources. It's the resource training is a lot
Okay.
of the conference, and then we offer supportive staffing that can go into classrooms through our volunteer network on our board, having such a wide, vast, and we find people that can go in. And then we do recognize teachers for their work. And we also do the Dabble Day, which is
Yeah,
a cola
that sounds
with
fun.
younger kids. It is. It's the kids are so cute.
Chaos, maybe.
It's fun. Yeah, they are
I
so
have
cute.
5 Legos.
You can't have a piggy bank. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to win. So, and the parents are, there again, there's all kinds of parents. Some parents say, I didn't realize I could start saving early. I didn't realize that this was
Yeah, I'm sure
available.
you tell
and
them to
other
get
parents
Social
don't.
Security numbers Because that's part, if you open up a checking account, you have to have a social security number, and all babies should have one anyway.
Those are issued at birth
Yeah.
now.
Oh, they are?
Yes.
Shows you how old I am. You have the last one. Oh, that's great. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Well, take that off the list.
Yep.
That's good.
We'll put a check mark
Yeah,
next
right,
to
done.
You have to make sure you know where it is.
Yeah.
Like the
Exactly.
What it is.
card.
Don't
Yeah.
lose it.
Yeah.
It's hard
don't lose it.
remembering after 75 years. I have to stop and think sometimes. Like, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
And fill out your selective service form.
There you go,
So
exactly.
here's one. I was looking at this long list of people that you collaborate with, and I think we've talked about most of them, VSAC. But what is Vermont Saves?
I did want to talk about Vermont Saves because that is coming up. And you could do this anytime, but Vermont Saves weekend is at the end of February, first
Oh.
of March. But you could do it anytime. Vermont Saves is part of a national saves program. So you go online,
America Saves.
America Saves, and you go online with Vermont Saves, and you make a pledge. So you decide how much you want to pledge and how much you want to save. So you decide how much you want to save, and you pledge to save so much a week. So you might want to buy a car. So that would be a high pledge. So you're gonna save, maybe $50 a week, and you're gonna do that for a year, a year and a half. So you make the determination, and they will send you an email if you choose to get it. You don't have to get it. Some ways of encouraging you to stay on
Save,
track
right.
and saving,
Right.
so that they'll keep you kind of
And
on
who
track.
is Vermont Save that we're?
It comes under Capstone. Capstone is the leading
Oh,
organization
now
with
I'm
it.
feeling better. I was wondering who this mystery organization was. I love Capstone, so now we're talking. What? So
So it's under them. Some states have kind of a national sponsor, local national
Right.
sponsor. Some don't. In Vermont, Capstone is a kind of our local
is Margaret
sponsor.
Ferguson involved in this? She must be.
If
it's a finance thing.
I'm not sure how much she's
Oh, okay.
involved in it.
Yes, if she's involved, count me in. Huh?
Yeah, she would be involved because she's part
Yeah,
of
right.
that whole
Yeah.
thing. But it's a great way of people to start saving, because you make the decision yourself. You make your pledge to yourself that you're going to
And
save.
do you keep? Where does the money go? Do you actually,
No,
or they're just trusting you that you said you saved 50 and we don't give them money, or do
you don't give them.
Oh, okay.
I don't
This
give
is
them.
good. A little
Right.
reminder.
Good
Big
stuff.
brother.
Yeah.
That
I
was
like
one
that.
of
I like
the
it.
initiatives that came out of the commission report as
Really?
well, was to capitalize and actually create a Vermont Saves in conjunction with the
Nice.
America
I have
Saves.
to look that up. Maybe that's
Yeah.
what I need is a little
Little reminder.
reminder.
Exactly. Anything that we can do to help kick us out of that groove.
Exactly. That's a good thing.
So we've only got about a minute left. I just wanted to really quickly hit some of the ways that our viewers can get involved and help the organization. Encouraging your local school to have classes in financial literacy, volunteer to help with the program, work or play in the golf tournament, which sounds like a lot of fun. I'm going to have to
Yes.
put that on my calendar.
Great.
And also donate to support financial literacy, which you can do so on the website.
Yeah.
You guys give us that website real quick.
vtjumpstart.org.
And we also have an email if people want to have more questions, and that's vtjumpstart@comcast.net.
Perfect.
Excellent.
So that they
Nancy,
can
thank you for being on the
Thank
show.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
nice
you
to see
very
you.
much.
Actually worked in the Merchants Bank.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you for tuning in. This was a very interesting show. I actually learned a lot. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, keep listening beyond the sound bites.